I remember the young man that we're about to honor tonight with the Myrtle Fillmore Award. He is still a very young man, and he gets younger every day. He's made a major difference in this movement, and we've all recognized that. Gary Simmons is an ordained unity minister and the director of our peacemaking department, as we all know. Maybe not everyone does know that he not only does that service for the Association of Unity Churches, but for Religious Science and other New Thought churches as well. I present to you Reverend Gary Simmons. Gary?
First, oh, okay. What's that? I didn't know you were on it. Well, stand up one. Can you hear me now? So when I first received the letter from Debbie Ball that I was to be gifted with this honor and recognition, I emailed her and I said, hasn't there been some mistake? It was hard for me to imagine just exactly what I was being recognized for. So I called up Jane and I said, Jane, what is this award about? I mean, isn't it the Girl Award? I'm a black belt. Fourth-degree black belt. No? So anyway, she said, now, Gary, this is a great thing. This is really, really great. I said, Myrtle Fillmore, she's the consciousness of unity. I mean, you think Charles was the person in the front, but it was Myrtle who really brought the unity movement into the world to reveal it. So I thought to myself, yeah, it's good. And then she said, and Myrtle represents the heart. Charles is the head, and Myrtle's the heart. I thought, yeah, that's good. That's good. And then she showed me some of Myrtle's writings, and she said, look what Myrtle wrote. Myrtle said, nations will forget to war when they remember the one life that lives in all mankind. I thought to myself, wow, just think. What if a world leader went, gosh, I know I was supposed to bomb somebody today, but I just can't remember who I was supposed to bomb today. I think I'll just go out and play golf. For me, this award is really an acknowledgement of where we have become together. What we're now about. What is happening in our movement that is beginning to really show up in the world in a new and different way that is demonstrating that we're here to make the difference. And it is in this great sense of value and appreciation for what we've become that I stand before you as a glad recipient of this recognition that we have recognized ourselves for who we are and what we're doing in this world. I want to recognize some of the folks who have come here to support me, my good friends Connie and Rod Welty, who have been with me over the years, over the 20 or so years, in various aspects of my journey, and have been there for me. And Cindy studied. We have the whole Northwest Arkansas Ministry Association here at the table, and Reverend Tommy Splitsky. And most importantly, my stepson and daughter, Sarah and Daniel Marsh. As many of you remember, nearly 2 years ago, my wife Nan passed away. And in that very difficult but yet wonderfully transformative experience, Sarah and Daniel and I have grown especially close. And so it makes such a big difference for me to have you here. And it's just a gift to me that you have traveled as far as you have. Sarah has come from Seattle, Washington. She is an architect. She designs $1 million homes on the ocean front. And Daniel is on his way right after this, driving to Vancouver, British Columbia, where he is going to be a philosopher of physics, science. And as I invited my stepkids to come, Daniel says, well, what is this award anyway? And, how do you explain this to someone who hasn't been a part of the Unity tradition? And so I said, well, it's a big thing. And he says, well, is it like the Academy Awards? And I said, well, yeah, it's like the Academy Awards. So he says, well, what award are you getting? Best actor? As I think about my career, my journey, Stan gave us a good sense of what it's like in our journey. I mean, there's all aspects of ministry. Some of it looks for us, some of it looks against us. I remember I was asked to lead my first church after 18 months. I've been before the placement committee, what is now the MMRT, at least 3 times. I figure the award is for the most rehabilitated unity ministry. I mean, if you can come from where I've come and get here, they'll let anybody in. Life is very interesting. Remember that story about Jesus after he fed the multitudes? He sent the disciples off on the boat. He said, I'll catch up with you later. Remember that story? And the disciples were out in the middle of the sea, and it got stormy, and they were getting a little anxious and upset. And meanwhile, Jesus is walking along the water. And in the Gospel of Mark, it says, and Jesus would have passed them by, had not Peter looked out as if to see a ghost and said, oh my God. Jesus stops, looks back, and says, oh, be of good cheer, it is I. And Peter says, if it is thou, Master, bid me to come out onto the water. So Jesus says, okay. You ever felt ministries like that? We sort of have this concept of what it's going to be like, and so we say, God, let me have a chance to make the difference. And God says, okay. I wouldn't have been here right now. One of the things I need to say, I need to speak, especially before Daniel and Sarah, I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for Nan. It's so important for us to honor and to acknowledge those people who stand with us, beside us, especially our spouses, our partners. Because we can't do what we do, what we're called to do, without that kind of support. And I wouldn't be on planet Earth had it been for Nan. She was the perfect minister's wife. In Fayetteville, when I had the ministry there, I was there for 12 years. She was in every aspect of it. She made me look good. So I want us to acknowledge as we really bring ourselves into full appreciation as to what we're about, the importance of all the people that make this thing go, that make this thing work. In the martial arts, we have a tradition of honoring our lineage. And as I look back to honor the lineage that has brought me here, I think about my first ministers, David McClure, who's not here right now, and Gwen Normand, who inspired me to enter into the ministry. And then, of course, our experience in ministerial school, we're touched by those individuals that we have been drawn into their care and keeping to give us gifts. And I especially remember Dr. Paul Barrett, who was one of the biggest gifts in my personal life, give me a sense of a taste of what I can become as I give myself to this work. And then the other individual that I'd like to mention is Dennis Nagle, who was unable to ground in this earthly experience the tremendous gift that he had to actually walk and live and embody Christ's presence. And then insofar as appreciating those who have been a part of this peacemaking journey, this evolution of what we're about, as we seek to bring forth into our communities a process that works and makes the difference. All of those who have supported me in my advocacy of transforming our system. The Standards Ministry team, especially Beth Ann Suggs and Marilyn Muehlbach and the others, Marlene Davis, who became a part of support that I needed to know that I was on the right track to pursue the kinds of things that needed to be done in terms of the organization. And then all of the peace workers who caught a glimpse of what was possible. The folks who are making this process work in our movement today. All of those who participated in the training and have felt ignited by the possibility that our unique principles can be demonstrated in the presence of conflict. So all of these people are an important part of the success and what has brought me here. I especially want to acknowledge the support that I've received from the Association Home Office, the Association staff, and especially Dr. Carl Loescher, who we have found a kind of connection with each other. Now, isn't it such a gift that we now know that soon he'll receive a kidney transplant? I especially want to thank and honor my boss, Dr. Reverend Glenn Mosley, who had, by intention or accident, the wisdom to give me permission to succeed or fail in this work. Give me total license and freedom to create whatever it is that God was inspiring me to do without any conditions or limitations. Such a rare gift to give someone. About 18 months ago, I had a near-death experience. Shortly after Nan passed away, it was about 4 months later. It was on New Year's Day, 2003. I ate something and I went into anaphylactic shock. And for those of you who know of that condition, without immediate emergency medical intervention, because the larynx collapses, a person can suffocate to death. And in that condition, I found myself actually opening to the possibility that I was going to pass away because Nana just recently moved on. And I thought to myself, well, this is it. And so I opened myself to leave this world. And then I heard her voice. And her voice said, no, you're going to stay because you have work to do. And so I reconciled myself with what the body was doing, and I just simply breathed as I could and just opened myself to the experience. And then I heard another voice as I was moving in and out of consciousness. And that voice said to me as clearly as the sound of my voice to you said, and your mission is to bring peace on earth. What do you do with a voice like that? I mean, for me, I was thinking, You are the one. I know for me, I wanted to push that voice away. I mean, the voice sounded like me, but I would never say that to me. And it's interesting because you see, everyone who is born into this world, every child who is born into this world knows that they're the one. Isn't that the truth? That every child that's born in this world knows that they're the one. And for some reason, we grow up and later on in adult life, we buy into some other message or belief about ourselves. We no longer believe that we're the one, that God has chosen to make the difference in this world. And it takes a near-death experience or a trauma or a tragedy or something to happen in our life to just shift us out of the self-talk into a place of receptivity where that voice speaks directly to us. Gary, your mission is to bring peace on earth. And so the reality is that when a voice like that comes, there's no how to do that. Is there? There's just, you are the one. And then this is what your job is. And so as I was in that experience of trying to reconcile how I felt about myself and the realization that if I'm not going to be the one, who will be it? And so I said, God, well, if I'm going to be the one to bring peace on earth, I need some guidance. I don't know what to do next. It doesn't seem that, my role as Director of Peacemaking Services is about bringing peace on earth. I mean, it's making a difference in the unity movement, but is my job assignment changed? And so the very next day, I received a phone call from a gentleman who identified himself as the director of the Center for the Omni Center for Peace, Justice, and Ecology. And he was contacting me because I am the Director of Peacemaking Services for the Unity Movement. And he asked me, what is Unity's position regarding the impending war in Iraq? So I'm on the phone with him and I say, well, Unity doesn't have a position. Unity doesn't take stands. And so he thanked me and I hung up the phone. And immediately my heart sunk. How is it possible that we, possessing the most powerful transformative teaching on the planet, is not participating in the conversations that make the difference in this world? So I contact Claire Austin, who was the chair of the board of trustees at the time, and I say, well, can we not have a conversation at the leadership level as to what is our position? I mean, the country is about to go to war. Should we say something about that? And, she was in that same struggle with me. But she agreed to bring that issue to the Board of Trustees. And a few days later, I received an email from Betts, who asked me, or who suggested that the board would like to invite me to write a draft statement. It happens when you complain a lot. It's not, well, I didn't know what our position should be. And along with this email were a lot of comments and guidelines. Don't mention war. Don't mention Iraq. Don't be against war before peace. And so I was looking at all these guidelines, and I was thinking to myself, well, what kind of position statement can we have? And then I thought to myself, don't blow up shit or kill people. I wrote the other statement, which actually I sent them both. They decided they liked the first one best, but they felt it wouldn't work with them. And you all have heard that statement many times before, and I'm feeling that I want to make another point besides just that, and that is My feeling is that for me, as I look to that voice and acknowledge that yes, my mission is to create peace on earth, and what that voice continues to speak to me, what that voice has given me is that unity, new thought, is the vehicle through which that mission is accomplished. That is our assignment. And for that to occur, before we can accomplish that, unity, new thought, must become mainstream. It won't happen unless we are capable of becoming mainstream. And what mainstream is that when you tell someone you're a unity minister, you don't have to explain that to them. And so there are three things that I feel that are important to speak, to have us be aware that all of us must work together to create these things if we're to become mainstream. The first is that our churches, our ministry, must thrive. They must thrive. And so that doesn't mean they have to be big. That means they have to be filled with the Spirit of God, alive and transforming lives. The second thing that I believe is required for us to become mainstream is that we must begin to participate in the conversations that make the difference in our human family story. What do we stand for? What do our truth principles say in these troubled times? And yes, not everyone is going to enjoy us taking a stand. But until we show up in the conversations that affect people where they are in their lives and say, our teachings make the difference, we will never receive the kind of credibility that is required for us to be viewed as being a theology that makes the difference. And then the third thing, perhaps the most important, is that we must become congruent. And what I mean by this is that we have a foundation principle that says there's one presence and one power at work in our life and in the universe, but then there are the exceptions. You see, my work is in dealing with those exceptions that have been created out of our disbelief in what we're about. Whenever we need to be right, whenever we have to have things be a certain way, whenever we resist what's going on in our life, whenever we defend ourselves, whenever we find ourselves caught in disagreement, we are making someone or something that's against us out there. And we are modeling how to demonstrate peace, the peace that the world teaches. There are two kinds of peacemaking. The peacemaking that the world teaches is to separate myself from what looks and feels against me. And you see, this is the kind of peacemaking, this is the kind of peace we inadvertently teach our congregations, the world, when we can't manage disagreement, when we can't manage judgment, when we can't deal with situations that are out there that look and feel against us. The second form of peacemaking happens when instead of separating ourselves from what looks and feels against us, we learn to separate ourselves from who we are not. Our fears, our inadequacies, our insecurities. Because you see, it's only possible to feel diminished in our experience, in our relationship to life, when we are not connected to our own sense of wholeness and worth. And the exceptions that we find in our experience are really a mirror to our disconnect. And so before we can become mainstream, before we can show up making a difference in the world, unity and new thought is going to have to live the truth, nothing and no one is against us. And we do not have enough time to deal with the exceptions. We do not have enough time to fix us. We are urgently needing to show up in this world, demonstrating first to our congregations, and once our congregations get it, that no one is against them, and they can be in challenging situations without feeling diminished. Once they get that, it'll begin to have a ripple effect. But who gives them that? You and I. And so, friends, if we can't make peace, my peace that Jesus described is the peace that only comes when we are in our relationship to life, knowing that nothing and no one is against us. When we can realize that that's the peace we must teach, then we can accomplish great things in this world. Because if we cannot create peace, what hope is there for the world? God bless you.